Welcome back, everybody, to Who Shot JFK. Today we are going really deep down the rabbit hole with this one.
Oh, yeah.
Talking Denial of Justice by Mark Shaw.
Fascinating book.
A book that really kind of just blew the doors open on the mysterious death of Dorothy Kilgallen, someone who I think most of our listeners know was very interested and very motivated and driven to uncover the truth behind JFK's assassination.
Right.
And we've got an expert here today to help us kind of break this down, sift through all the evidence, all the theories that are in this book.
I'm happy to be here.
So,
Yeah, it's an amazing story, this book. What I find so compelling about it is how meticulously it connects Kilgallen's death to her investigation of the JFK assassination. I mean, there's a really strong case presented here that her death was no accident.
yeah, before we get into the theories and the specifics of the book, maybe we can take a step back and remind our listeners, who Dorothy Kilgallen was and why she was such a prominent figure, especially in relation to the JFK assassination.
Well, Dorothy Kilgallen was a journalistic powerhouse of her time. I mean, imagine someone who was a top crime reporter, also had a syndicated column, Voice of Broadway, and was a beloved panelist on the game show What's My Line? I mean, she was everywhere.
Yeah, she was like a huge celebrity.
And people really listened to what she had to say.
And she wasn't afraid to speak truth to power to kind of stir the pot a little bit.
Absolutely. She was known for being sharp and relentless, and she wasn't afraid to challenge anybody, no matter how powerful they were. And of course, that made her a trusted voice for many, but it also put her in the crosshairs of some very powerful people. And, as you mentioned, her involvement in the JFK assassination investigation it's huge.
I mean, she was really going after the truth.
Yeah.
She attended Jack Ruby's trial, the man who killed Lee Harvey Oswald. And she even managed to snag a secret interview with him. I mean, that's incredible access.
Yeah.
What did her reporting uncover that might have made her such a threat?
Well, her coverage of the Ruby trial really exposed a number of inconsistencies and questionable events that, started to cast doubt on the official narrative. And as you know, she was very publicly critical of the Warren Commission report, which concluded that Oswald acted alone.
Right.
And, Kilgallen believed there was much more to the story, and she wasn't shy about saying so.
So let's talk about the circumstances surrounding her death. I mean, officially it was ruled an accidental overdose of alcohol and barbiturates.
Right.
But denial of justice really takes aim at that explanation, doesn't it?
It does.
What are some of the details that make her death seem less like a tragic accident and more like something way more sinister?
There are a number of details that are very unsettling that don't quite add up. There are these conflicting accounts about the discovery of her body, the time of her death. They found a barbiturate in her system, Tuinol, for which she had no prescription. And even more suspicious, key pieces of evidence vanished. Things like her personal notes and the clothes she was supposedly wearing when she died.
Yeah, so it's giving very much spy thriller mystery.
Yeah, absolutely.
All these unanswered questions and inconsistencies swirling around. It's no wonder that so many theories have emerged about what really happened to Dorothy Kilgallen.
Right.
We've got, accidental overdose, suicide, and then, of course, the theory that she was murdered because she knew too much.
Right.
Denial of justice really leans into that murder theory, doesn't it?
It does.
That's the main thrust of the book.
It really lays out a meticulous case that Kilgallen was getting too close to uncovering something explosive, something that, powerful people wanted to keep hidden, and that silencing her was the only way to ensure that that truth stayed buried.
And the book names some pretty high-profile suspects.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't it? Each with their own motives and potential connections to Kilgallen.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, it starts to feel like a real-life game of Clue, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who are some of these key players that we're going to be looking at, and why did the author zero in on them as potential suspects?
Well, the book delves into several intriguing possibilities, starting with J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI.
Yeah.
Remember, Kilgallen was openly critical of their handling of the JFK assassination investigation, and she wasn't shy about suggesting there was a cover-up. Her reporting directly challenged Hoover's authority and threatened to unravel the carefully constructed narrative that he had presented to the public. So are we talking motive and opportunity here, or did the author find some hard evidence actually linking Hoover to Kilgallen's death?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Well, when it comes to Hoover, Shaw really focuses on motive and opportunity, and he kind of points to the FBI's documented history of using surveillance and intimidation tactics to silence their critics. The book also highlights some curious incidents like the alleged presence of FBI agents at Kilgallen's townhouse the very day she died.
Hmm.
It's all circumstantial, but, it raises eyebrows.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to another big name in this story. Carlos Marcello, a notorious mafia kingpin. What was his connection to Kilgallen, and why did the author suspect him of involvement in her death?
So, denial of justice makes a pretty compelling argument that Marcello was deeply involved in JFK's assassination and that Kilgallen was getting dangerously close to exposing that truth. And, we have to remember that Marcello had a really strong motive to want JFK out of the picture. The Kennedy administration was cracking down on organized crime, and Marcello's empire was feeling the heat.
Right.
And the book suggests that Kilgallen's, digging into Jack Ruby's background and his connections could have led her right back to Marcello.
Oh, so if she exposed Ruby's ties to Marcello, then
Yeah.
that would basically unravel the whole assassination plot.
Exactly. And Marcello couldn't risk that.
Okay. But is there any evidence that Marcello actually took steps to stop Kilgallen or to silence her?
Well, the book details a trip that Kilgallen took to New Orleans right before her death, and she was there to investigate Marcello's possible ties to the assassination, which, basically put her right in his territory, right on his radar. And while the evidence is largely circumstantial, Shaw builds a case around Marcello's reputation. I mean, the guy was ruthless, and he had a vast network, and the motive was definitely there.
Yeah. A powerful mob boss
Yeah.
using his influence to take out a journalist. That's a scary thought, for sure. Okay, so we've got J. Edgar Hoover, we've got Carlos Marcello, and next on the list is Frank Sinatra. This one feels a little out of left field to me.
Yeah.
What was Sinatra's problem with Kilgallen, and what made the author think he might have been involved?
Yeah, it does seem a little strange at first, but Sinatra and Kilgallen actually had a very volatile relationship. She had reported on his alleged mob ties in his personal life.
Right.
Sinatra was known for having quite a temper, and, he had connections to some shady characters.
Right.
And the book actually details how, he publicly mocked Kilgallen and threatened her and made it very clear that he was not a fan of her reporting.
Wow, okay, so there was bad blood there. But do we think that Sinatra would actually have gone so far as to have her killed? I mean, that seems like a pretty extreme reaction, even for a guy with a temper.
Yeah, it's a fair question. The book doesn't present a smoking gun that directly links Sinatra to Kilgallen's death, but it really makes you question, Sinatra's capacity for violence and the lengths he might go to protect his reputation and his associates. It's more about establishing a pattern of animosity and a potential motive, and leaving the reader to decide whether Sinatra had the will and the means to silence Kilgallen for good.
It's a really interesting theory, especially considering Sinatra's, larger-than-life personality and his reputation for being both charming and ruthless.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to someone a bit closer to home. Kilgallen's estranged husband, Richard Colmar.
Right.
This is where things take a more personal turn.
Yeah, they do. Kilgallen and Colmar were actually leading separate lives at the time of her death, and the book delves into their troubled relationship. There's a lot of hints at resentment, jealousy, even darker motive.
What did the author find out about their relationship that made him suspect that Colmar might have been involved?
Well, the picture that's painted in Denial of Justice is a marriage that was in real turmoil. Colmar was reportedly resentful of Kilgallen's success and her fame, possibly jealous of her affairs, and he was struggling with his own demons, including a drug problem. And the book also points out that Colmar had access to the type of barbiturates that were found in Kilgallen's system.
Okay, so we've got a husband with some potential resentment, jealousy, access to the drugs, and a history of personal struggles. Anything else that makes Colmar a particularly strong suspect?
Well, there are some conflicting accounts about his behavior right after Kilgallen's death. Some witnesses described him as, distraught and really grief-stricken, while others said that he seemed strangely detached, almost unemotional. And, those inconsistencies, coupled with, everything else we've talked about, it really does make Colmar a suspect worth considering.
Yeah, okay, so we've covered J. Edgar Hoover, Carlos Marcello, Frank Sinatra, and Richard Colmar. Are there any other names on the author's list of suspects?
Oh, yeah. This is where things get really interesting. The book also focuses on a journalist named Ron Pataky, someone that Kilgallen considered a confidant and a friend, and she actually shared details about her JFK investigation with him.
Okay.
But Shaw kind of suggests that this trust might have been misplaced.
Misplaced. How, so was there any reason to believe that Pataky would betray Kilgallen or, be involved in something like this?
Well, there are a few things that raise some red flags about Pataky. First of all, Kilgallen had confided in him that she suspected someone was leaking information about her investigation, which suggests, she was already kind of wary of potential betrayals within her inner circle.
Hmm.
But second, and maybe even more chilling, is that Pataky actually wrote two poems that seem to eerily foreshadow Kilgallen's death.
Wait, hold on. He wrote poems about her death.
Yeah, the poems actually use language that alludes to poison and betrayal and a woman's untimely death.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Did the author confront Pataky about these poems? What did he have to say about it?
He did. Shaw confronted Pataky about the poems, and he denied that they had anything to do with Kilgallen. But, the timing is just too strange, and the language is so specific it's hard to ignore.
It sounds more than coincidental. Is there anything else about Pataky's background or his behavior that would make him a suspect in this case?
Well, Shaw digs into Pataky's past and finds a history of erratic behavior. He had a tendency to embellish stories, and there were even instances of violence.
Oh, wow.
The book also reveals that Pataky had actually boasted to several women about having information that could bring down the government,
Whoa.
which could have, made him a target for those involved in a cover-up.
So maybe he was involved in something dangerous, and those poems were his way of, hinting at his knowledge or even his role in Kilgallen's death. Is that what the author was suggesting?
Yeah, I think so. Shaw suggests that Pataky might have been caught up in something, either willingly or unwillingly, and that his poems were kind of a cryptic way of confessing or maybe even taunting those who were involved. It's a really chilling possibility, and it adds another layer of complexity to this mystery.
Welcome back to Who Shot JFK.
Ah,
We've been really deep in the weeds with this one, talking about Denial of Justice by Mark Shaw, a book that looks into the death of Dorothy Kilgallen. And it's been quite a ride. I mean, we've gone from the FBI to the mafia, even Frank Sinatra,
right.
and even Dorothy Kilgallen's own husband.
It's made, like a real who's who of, 20th century American figures.
Yeah, but the question still remains, did any of these individuals actually take concrete steps to silence her, or was it truly an accident like the official report concluded?
Right.
But, the book really makes a compelling case for murder.
Oh, it does.
The author points to so many inconsistencies in the official story, like the barbiturates. She didn't have a prescription for the missing notes, the different stories about, her time of death. It's hard to just brush those aside.
Yeah, it really does cast doubt on the accidental overdose theory, especially, when you add in the fact that she was investigating the JFK assassination.
Right.
And that she was, challenging the Warren Commission's findings. I mean, it paints a picture of a woman who was a threat to a lot of people.
And she wasn't just, passively reporting on the JFK assassination. She was actively going out digging for the truth and, pushing buttons, ruffling feathers along the way.
Right.
The book suggests that this pursuit of truth ultimately cost her life.
It's a powerful argument.
Yeah, but the author didn't stop at just writing the book. He actually went a step further and tried to get justice for Kilgallen. What did he do?
Well, Mark Shaw contacted the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, presented the evidence from his book, and really urged them to reopen the investigation into Kilgallen's death.
I mean, that's huge. Did they take him seriously?
It seemed like at first they reviewed his materials. They even assigned a detective to the case.
Wow.
But then, in a really frustrating turn of events, they decided not to reopen the investigation.
Oh, really? What was their reason?
They said there wasn't sufficient evidence of foul play.
Which really just kind of adds fuel to the fire, doesn't it?
Yeah, if there was nothing to hide, why not take another look?
Right.
I think a lot of people saw this as, further evidence of a cover-up.
It's so frustrating. We're basically left with a puzzle with missing pieces.
It's true.
And a story with some chapters that haven't been written yet.
Definitely.
So after digging into denial of justice, going through all the theories and evidence, what are we left with?
Well, I think what the book really highlights is that the official narrative around the JFK assassination is far from complete. There are still so many unanswered questions and potential secrets hidden from public view. And Kilgallen's story, as told in Denial of Justice, really shows the risks that people take when they challenge powerful institutions.
It's a powerful message about the importance of always searching for the truth, even when it's difficult or dangerous.
And to always question the official story.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into denial of justice, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this story?
I think it's the importance of curiosity and skepticism and the willingness to dig deeper, especially when it comes to events as momentous as the JFK assassination. Dorothy Kilgallen really embodied that spirit of inquiry, and her story, as told by Mark Shaw, reminds us that the search for truth can be dangerous, but it's absolutely essential.
Absolutely. And even decades later, there are people like Mark Shaw still fighting to make sure justice is served and the truth is brought to light. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into denial of justice. It's a story that stays with you. It's full of twists and turns, and it really makes you think. And it reminds us that even though we may never have all the answers, the search for truth is always worthwhile. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring. And as always, thanks for listening to Who Shot JFK?